Inside of Auschwitz concentration camp, there were thousands of women who were imprisoned and were guarded by a number of evil female guards such as Irma Grazer, who would later be executed at the end of the Second World War. But there were some inspiring stories that emerged from the women who were housed inside the most evil and deadliest camp of the Third Reich. One woman, Franceska Mann, was a Polish ballerina who was well known in Poland. However, she would be transported to Auschwitz, and whilst here there was a deadly incident in which occurred involving the ballerina, and because of this she was executed by the SS. But what is the story of the execution of the ballerina of Auschwitz? Join us today as we find out, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Francesca Mann was born in February 1917 as Francesca Manheimer, and she as a young girl excelled as a dancer. She trained in Warsaw before the Second World War, and she became friends with other Polish entertainers. In 1939, whilst at the age of 22, she was placed fourth in an international dance competition in Brussels, and she was also known for being one of the most beautiful and promising Polish dancers around. She was clearly a very talented young woman. However, as the Second World War broke out, she was working inside of the Melody Palace nightclub in Warsaw. But soon after the Germans captured the city, they instigated a horrific ghetto system inside of Warsaw. The Warsaw Ghetto was where hundreds of thousands of Jews were forced inside a small area, around 3.4 kilometres square. It's estimated that 460,000 Jews were held there, meaning that 9 people were living in a room on average, and the conditions were brutal. There was hardly any food, with the average calories for Jews a day being 184, when compared to the 2,600 for the German guards. The ghetto system would starve and humiliate the Jews, and often there were diseases that would spread quickly around the overcrowded area, and bodies would be left on the side of the roads. There was widespread famine and no access to healthcare, with the inhabitants often forced to work incredibly hard in different industries also. But the ghetto system would be used for a period of time, until hundreds of thousands were deported to extermination camps such as Sobibor, Belzec and Treblinka, where they were killed within minutes of entering the camps. Inside of the ghetto there was a culture that did emerge, and Francesca would have continued to dance when she could, but in some publications she was actually named as a German collaborator. What the extent of this collaboration was is not known. She was also associated with the Hotel Polski affair. This was where a hotel following the liquidation of the Warsaw Ghetto was used by the Germans as bait for Jews hiding in the city. German agents and Jewish collaborators pretended that Jews could buy foreign passports and documents to escape there, but around 2,500 Jews fell for the trap. After this they were arrested and were moved to the concentration camps, and many died inside camps such as Auschwitz. It's believed that Franceska Mann may have even been a victim of this plot. But on the 23rd of October 1943, a transport of 1,700 Polish Jews arrived at Auschwitz on passenger trains, and they had been told initially they were going to be taken to a transfer camp before they were sent on to Switzerland to be exchanged for German POWs. But Francesca was one of those sent to Auschwitz, and at the time the camp had expanded to a huge site. Auschwitz was where at least 1.3 million people were imprisoned, with 1.1 million dying within the barbed wire fences, having succumbed to the evil conditions or being sent to the gas chambers. It was the largest camp created, with commandants such as Rudolf Höss overseeing the huge killing operation, and he employed a number of evil and brutal guards to make the lives of prisoners horrific. Many SS guards would inflict torture each day with brutal beatings, would mistreat everyone they came across, and would even execute the inmates in front of thousands for slight infringements of the law. It really was a harrowing place, and many of the horrors of Auschwitz today still have not been completely uncovered. However, the accounts of what happened to Franceska Mann when she arrived at Auschwitz are debated, and according to some inmates, the new arrivals, including Francesca, were not registered. This would mean that they had been marked for extermination and execution as soon as they entered the camp, and then these prisoners were taken to the gas chamber complex and the crematoriums. It's believed that at this time Francesca was rather suspicious of what was happening, and they were then told to go into the undressing room, where they were ordered to take off their clothes ready for disinfecting. Francesca replied allegedly that something would happen, and what happened inside the concrete undressing chamber shows that Franceska Mann would go down fighting, being led to her death. One former prisoner wrote how 2 SS guards, Josef Schillinger and Walter Quakenak, were attracted to Franceska Mann and her striking black hair, and as she was taking off her shoes they noticed her. It's said that Francesca then allegedly undressed slowly, dancing to try and seduce the SS guards. She took off her blouse and then leaned against a pole to take off her high-heeled shoes. But then she would strike. As the guards approached her, as she stood there, she took off her shoe and grabbed it before thrusting the heel of her shoe against either Quackernack or Schillinger's forehead. As one of the guards grabbed her for their revolver and pistol from its holster, Franceska Mann then grabbed the gun and she fired off 2 shots into Schillinger's stomach. Mann then called upon the other women to attack the SS guards, and one SS man had his nose ripped off and another was scalped as the women fought for their lives. But this uprising was then dealt with brutally by the camp's Commandant Rudolf Höss. We know for certain that Josef Schillinger died from his wounds after being shot in the stomach, and that the women were all slaughtered by the SS. It's not known for certain what happened next with the execution of the women and Franceska Mann. Some reports say that the women were taken out of the chamber one by one, and that they were shot in the head for their mutiny. Other accounts claim that whilst the women were locked in the undressing room, the SS fired their weapons on the women, slaughtering them all. Others state that they were then driven into the gas chambers, and within minutes they had all been killed. The SS men that arrived to deal with the mutiny were heavily armed with machine guns and grenades. Despite the fact the Germans destroyed huge amounts of evidence and records to hide their crimes, there is a German source that described the event. Auschwitz Commandant Rudolf Höss would recall that following the arrival of a group of prisoners who were waiting to be gassed, one transport from Belsen arrived. Approximately 2/3, mostly men, were in the gas chamber. The remaining third was in the undressing room. When 3 or 4 armed SS guards entered the dressing room to hasten the undressing, mutiny broke out. The light cables were torn down, the SS men were overpowered, one of them was stabbed, and all of them were robbed of their weapons. As this room was in complete darkness while shooting started between the guard near the exit door and the prisoners inside. When I arrived, I ordered the doors to be shut, and I had the process of gassing the first party finished, and then went into the room together with the guard carrying small searchlights, pushing the prisoners into the corner from where they were taken out singly into another room of the crematorium, and shot, by my order, with small caliber weapons. We know for certain that Schillinger was killed by a woman, and it's accepted that this was Franceska Mann. Schillinger had been a butcher before he worked at Auschwitz, and he would beat inmates horrifically and then supervise their gassings in the crematoria. Adolf Eichmann would also state that he was killed by a woman, and another witness, a Jewish doctor and prisoner, said of the event, Schillinger told the women to undress, and one woman said she did not undress in front of men. In consequence of this, he raised his whip, his cane. He always walked around with his cane, and he wanted to strike her. At this point, she drew a revolver and killed him with 1 shot. From the time we received this information, Schillinger never appeared in the camp, naturally, because he had been killed. She also, it's known, shot another SS guard named Emmerich, who for the rest of his life walked with a permanent limp. The Auschwitz Museum would confirm the account of the 2 SS guards being shot by a woman on the 23rd of October 1943, on the date that it's believed Franceska Mann was killed. But her actions of attacking an SS guard shortly before her death, in an act of rebellion as she would fight for her life, was honourable, and many of the other women inside the chamber knew that if they did not do anything, they would die anyway. The story of Franceska Mann's execution is one which is debated, but it's known for certain that at the age of 26 she was killed, either executed by gunshot in the undressing room or just outside it, or she was forced into the gas chambers, like millions of other people during the Second World War. She is known as the Ballerina of Auschwitz, but she would not go to her death without a fight, and Franceska Mann's story is one which deserves to be well known. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.